Hello everyone, my name is James Bold, lead news anchor and meteorologist for First Coast Weather and News, based out of Jacksonville, Florida. By now, I am sure all of you have heard about Hurricane Ian. For those of you who are unaware, a major hurricane is expected to impact the Florida peninsula over the course of the week. A lot of people have moved to Florida since Hurricanes Irma and Michael, so it's important to make sure everyone is in the know on what to do. And please, do not blow this off, no pun intended. I know some Floridians may be rolling their eyes at me and saying, James, hurricanes never do major damage in my part of the state. That's great for you, but that's not always the case, as we have seen numerous times in the past 5 years. So with all that considered, I thought this would be a good time to remind everyone about hurricane safety. So please, join me on our show tonight, as we discuss what a hurricane is, where the worst of the weather will likely be, and what you should do to keep your family safe. So, what is a hurricane? To put it simply, a hurricane is a large storm that forms over warm ocean waters. A low-pressure system will form out over the sea, and as pressure drops within the system, the storm will become more intense. Hurricanes are rated with the Saffir-Simpson scale, which goes from 1 to 5. There are also 2 stages before a storm is considered a hurricane, which is a tropical depression and a tropical storm. Each of these categories, including the 2 non-hurricane descriptors, are rated based on their wind speeds. Despite this, wind gusts are actually not the most common cause of death and property destruction from hurricanes. Storm surge, or a forceful push of water driven by the hurricane, is the most common cause of loss from a tropical system. But despite these 2 threats, hurricanes can still cause damage in other ways. Tornadoes have been known to form on the outer bands of a hurricane, or even in thunderstorms that surround the core, otherwise known as the eye of the storm. The eye of the storm is often considered to be the calmest part of a hurricane, but that is a bit of a misconception. While it is true that there is little to no wind or precipitation in the hurricane's eye, it is surrounded on all sides by the eye wall. This is usually an intense band of thunderstorms that circulates around the eye, and often contains the highest wind gusts the hurricane will produce. Heavy rainfall is also of high concern with hurricanes, especially within Hurricane Ian, due to its slow movement speed. This means storm bands may continue to train over the same areas for hours, producing high rainfall amounts. So now that we have gotten the basics of hurricanes out of the way, how should you prepare? Well, your level of necessary preparation may vary by region. At the very least, it is always good to have a stock of canned food, bottled water, extra medications, a weather radio, and spare batteries ready throughout the hurricane season. If possible, it doesn't hurt to have access to a portable generator and extra gasoline. But in order to gauge how you should respond to an approaching hurricane, it is best to look to the National Hurricane Center website and the National Weather Service for help. If you live along the immediate coastline or the coast of an inland waterway, it is likely a good idea to evacuate. Often, emergency management will order mandatory evacuations in the case of particularly intense storms. Sometimes they will just issue voluntary evacuations, where it is recommended that you leave, but you are not forced to. Many larger cities around Florida, such as Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, Panama City, and more have specific evacuation maps and zones. If you are unsure about which evacuation zone you reside in, please consult www.floridadisaster.org. If local officials are urging you to leave, please listen. Nothing at home is worth losing your life over. If you live more inland and are away from the water, it is less likely you will be told to evacuate. However, you should still be wary and remain in your home through the duration of the storm if possible. So, where is the worst of the weather expected to be? Well, as of now, this is the 5 p.m. National Hurricane Center forecast for Hurricane Ian. As you can see, the center of the storm is expected to make landfall somewhere between Tampa and Northport, sometime Wednesday night. But what is that red cone? You may ask. That is an indication of the possible track of where the central rotation of the hurricane will move. It's a common misconception that the red cone is meant to symbolize impacts from the hurricane. However, strong winds and rain typically stretch far outside the forecast cone. In fact, most of the weather is actually occurring to the north and eastern sides of Hurricane Ian, with little precipitation on the west and southern sides of the center. Generally speaking, the northeast quadrant of a hurricane is considered to be the most dangerous portion of the storm. This is due to this quadrant typically having the highest winds outside of the eye wall, and also increased rotation within the atmosphere, which can lead to tornadoes. With Hurricane Ian, the cone has undergone a lot of changes, even just over the course of 3-hour updates. Due to this uncertainty, nailing down the exact places that will see the worst of Ian's weather is difficult. For our area on the first coast, Ian is expected to pass nearby as a tropical storm, with wind speeds around 60 miles per hour. Now, while that may not sound too bad, remember that this may mean constant 60 miles per hour winds for hours on end. And in addition to the winds, torrential rainfall will likely occur over most of the Florida peninsula through Friday evening, so flash flooding is still a major risk for most of the state. Do not underestimate a storm just because it went down in category, or fell below hurricane requirements. But if I had to give my guess on where the worst of the weather would be, it would likely be near the landfall, of course. Areas near landfall are expected to receive anywhere from 6 to 12 feet of storm surge. Wind gusts will likely exceed 140 miles per hour, and major flooding will occur. This is truly a life-threatening situation to millions of Floridians, and it should not be taken lightly. Widespread property damage, loss of power, and damage to the local terrain should be expected. I know there is often an attitude many Floridians have regarding hurricanes. That they think they're all tough, and it's no big deal. But let me tell you, you are not stronger than Mother Nature. The unfortunate truth is this storm is threatening destruction to over 20 million people as of now, and there is nothing we can do to stop this storm. But what we can do is pull our heads out of our asses, and hunker down. If you can, stay at home until the storm has passed. If you must go out, do not stay out for long, and avoid any flooded roadways. You should never drive through a flooded roadway, as it can be very difficult to tell the true depth of the water until it is too late. If a tornado or an extreme wind warning is issued for your area, take shelter in the lowest and most central room in your building. I know most Floridians do not have access to underground shelter, but you can still take precautions to mitigate your risk of death. Just take it easy, stay inside, and wait until the storm passes. That is just about all I have to say about hurricanes. But what if you would like to learn more? There are numerous mobile and desktop applications you can use, along with websites. In my opinion, the best two places to look are the National Weather Service website, specifically for your area, and the National Hurricane Center website. The National Weather Service website is able to provide a localized forecast for your county or area, which can help you understand what is coming your way. The National Hurricane Center issues updates every 3 hours on Hurricane Ian, which includes its track, pressure, sustained wind speeds, and other useful information. It also doesn't hurt to listen to your local news stations. Many news stations, including ours here in Jacksonville, have multiple professional meteorologists on staff. If you are able to keep power on in your house, I would advise that you have your local news station on during the duration of the storm. On television, you can also consult the Weather Channel, but I would still recommend local news first. On mobile devices, there are numerous apps you can use to get forecasts and radar scans of Ian. Most smartphones nowadays have built-in weather applications, and those are usually pretty reliable. But you can't go wrong with an old-fashioned weather radio. As long as you have batteries, it will be able to give you updates throughout the entire storm, even if the power goes out. Thank you for joining me on this, admittedly unnerving evening. I know these storms can be scary, but if you remain informed and take actions to keep you and your family safe, everything will be all right. Please remain tuned into your local news stations, and keep a close eye on local weather forecasts and alerts. Thank you for joining us. We will be back tomorrow morning with more coverage on Hurricane Ian. For now, I hope you all have a wonderful and safe evening.